Mr. Scissons, for you, your career has been, a special one for sure.
Clark, I'm Jim.
Jim? All right, Jim. That's your father, I guess, hey, Mr. Scissons, that's what
right.
they say. But, we're here at Riverside where, you just do spend a lot of your time still, but how did it start for you, back in the day and your love affair with the game of golf?
Boy. I was thinking about that this morning. My wife gave me a nudge about 4 o'clock. She's not feeling very well, and so I got up. I'm thinking at 4 o'clock in the morning, when the hell did I start to play golf? So reality was, Clark, as I started as a 9-year-old, my mother decided, we had moved in from Lucky Lake where I was born. My dad had an American Motors franchise, which was Nash and Rambler. You might not remember that name, but that was the fourth of the big four, but it was a very small of the fourth. Anyway, Dad in the car business, moved into Saskatoon and looked for something to do, and my mother said, let's go play golf. So we went to a building on 2nd Avenue, and I can remember it like yesterday. In the upper level was a store called Blanche Buchanan's, which is a pretty expensive women's clothing store. And in the basement, Bill Turnbull had a golf school, and he set up big tarps and had hitting mats, and he probably had 7 or 8 of them. So you could go down in the wintertime and hit golf balls if you wanted to, but it was more like a teaching station. Mm-hmm. And so we all proceeded down to Bill's golf school and took lessons, and then came out here in the spring of the year. And it was a lot different from what you see out here today. And right down there was about a 6x8 little building, and it was just called the starter shed. And and you went down there and signed in, mm-hmm. and teed off on it was a kind of a dirt tee, and went up that way. And kind of remember it, if you hit it to the right, you never found your golf ball, because there was weeds and whatever else down there. So, and I was forever hitting it right. So it was a frustrating first few years for me. But that's Bill Turnbull, wonderful man. Yeah.
Yeah, he shares the Hall of Fame with you, obviously, a name very familiar. What was it about the game that, did you instantly fall in love, or did, you mentioned some frustration at the start, did it take a while for you to really get into the game?
Well, I enjoyed it. Back then, if you either played baseball or something else. And I can remember going to try out for a 13-year-old team. I cannot recall what they were called, but Joe Zeman cut me. I remember that like it was yesterday.
You remember his name?
That was absolutely devastating, is what it was. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'll go and play golf. And so I always enjoyed golf. It was frustrating for me to begin with because I couldn't accept some of the grounders that I hit, or fly balls going right, or whatever it might have been. But it was intriguing, and I just worked at it, and it was good fun. Yeah. Ultimately, at some point in time, I had just spent a lot of time playing golf. I loved to practice, and I loved to play.
And you eventually, was it fairly quick that you knew that you were pretty good at it?
Oh boy.
I know you mentioned the work, and it's going to take work, and everybody. I mean, I've spoken to your friend Doug Mater, and he said the amount of time he practiced he couldn't even fathom. But did it take a lot of work, or did it come naturally to you?
The lessons with Bill Turnbull were so good. It just planted the seed in the golf swing. So once that happened, there wasn't much more going on. But I'd love to play well. I had a certain amount of pride in what I wanted to do. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to work at it. I also had a guy who helped me a lot. His name was Les Bevan. Les was the pro at the city golf course, and he would come out and spend some time with me on the driving range. And he was a neat old guy. both of them have now passed on, but yeah, they were the guys that kind of helped me find the right path.
You know, and then you start getting into the provincial championships and winning as a junior, and golf started to take you somewhere, and traveling and seeing a lot of this country that maybe you would never expect.
Exactly right. Yep, it did.
Do you remember the first win?
As a
junior?
As a junior? Oh. You know what? I don't. I think it was. I'm trying to think how old I was. Whether I was 17 or 18. I'm sorry. I've without memory on that one.
I think it was 1960.
1960. So I'd be 19 years of age.
Yeah. But you went on to win a lot more and down into the States and everything like that.
1960. We played. Now I kind of remember what's going on. The year before, we were, I think, playing in Yorkton or in PA, one of the two, and Stan Hominick beat me by a shot or two. And the next year I won it. And I kind of remember a little bit of vindication going on. And so, but beyond that, you know, we played the Central Saskatchewan Amateur, the stayed in the provincials and played that. For the next 10 years, like until I was about 30, I played a lot of golf. Mm-hmm. And then I met a beautiful lady, and we had 3 children, and went and worked for my dad, who owned a company called Metro Motors, but since it became Western Mobile Homes.
Okay.
And if you go straight down that road, Clark, you'll run into Western Mobile Homes. If you came in up on 16,
yep.
Yeah, just to the right before you turn left. Off to the right is Western Mobile Homes.
Yeah. I do want to back up a little bit before you got into your family, and probably took you away from the game a little bit, as it does for everybody, for sure. But 5 years at the University of Regina, when they had a golf program, how great was that to be able to stay home and play golf and get your education rather than going miles and miles away, like your grandson Connor?
Yeah. Well, it was golf at the University of Saskatchewan was. It wasn't terribly big,
Yeah, no, for sure.
We would come in September. We would enroll in classes at the first week of September, and the College of Phys Ed would try to organize a golf team, and we would have 2 tryout rounds or whatever, and then we'd go to play in the Western Canadian Collegiate Championship, which was in either Vancouver or Edmonton or Saskatoon, or occasionally it was in Winnipeg, but I don't recall going to Winnipeg, but went to the other ones. And it didn't last all that long, nor should it have. If you're going to have a golf program, you've got to get more involved in 2 rounds of qualifying and 2 rounds of competitive golf. That doesn't qualify as a program. So it eventually left the university, and probably rightfully so. Yeah, you hate to see that thing go, but one of the things, Clark, I did after I graduated from Saskatchewan, I went down to Arizona, and
that was going to be next, yeah.
I took my master's degree in physical education, and that was a whole different experience, watching kids come in as athletes and participating in going to school, and that whole different world, for sure.
Yeah, in 1967, what were 90 years of golf, a publication, the most outstanding accomplishment. He defeated a number of players who later became successful on the PGA Tour when you won the Arizona State Amateur Championship in 1967. Is that your greatest accomplishment on the golf course? Because I think your family is probably number one, and your wife,
Absolutely.
Right? Your relationship there.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of good ones. It's hard to sort them out as to what's, but it was quite different from anything else that occurred. Played at a golf course, Clark. It was so nice. It was developed that on the west end of Phoenix, and it was in Litchfield Park. And today I can't remember what it's called, but they had 5 golf courses there, and we played on what was called the Blue Course, which was the best of the 5. And it was just a great location to go and play golf, and it was a wonderful experience I went through, and I played some good guys that went on to compete, as you've noted. But match play being what it is that, you know, you're not necessarily the best golfer that wins. You might have played a certain number of holes well, but having said that, you know, you might shoot 85 and still beat somebody 4-3. That's just the ironic of match play versus medal play.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
6-time amateur men's Saskatchewan champion, most ever, and the 1964 Willington Cup team, the only Saskatchewan team to ever win that national championship. That's got to, those memories got to be
right here at Riverside. Yeah. And the neat thing about it was that Eddie Ross, Ernie Greenlee, Keith Reber, and I had qualified to play in it, and I had played out here enough that I didn't need to come out and play in this number of golf rounds. And the guys who were coming from all over Canada were here and trying to play. The thing that happened out here, Clark, was that I think it was day 2. The wind blew at about 45 miles an hour, and the guys from BC and Alberta, I had no idea what was going on. I mean, the golf balls were going everywhere. And Eddie and Keith played exceptionally well. I think that Eddie was under par and Keith was even par, and that was remarkable. I was the 3rd guy in the group, and Ernie was a little above me. But at that time, you only need 3 or 4 to qualify for the tournament. So, but nevertheless, I was climbing on the back of Keith and Eddie, and they played so well. Yeah.
You guys must have had some battles against each other in those in championships as well, hey?
Eddie and I remember vividly coming out to play here at Riverside where the tournament was on, and we went to the 37th hole for me to win the tournament. The 37th hole at that time was the 10th hole as we see it today. And I'm thinking that I made par and Eddie made bogey, but that was just the way match play is. And I'd like to say to you that I was much better than Eddie, but no, I wasn't. And Eddie was the ultimate competitor in a sense that he could blow it into the river on one hole and it didn't even faze him. Like, I mean, he didn't flinch. He stood up the next hole and blew it down the middle, and he was just remarkable in that sense. Most guys would have said, "Oh, shit, I hit it over there. Well, I better aim to the right," doing something, different. But not Eddie. He was not only was he a nice person, but he was a good golfer as well.
Is that what when you look back? I mean, now we're talking mid-60s here, so 55 years ago or so. Is it still the memories of just the camaraderie on the golf course? Is that what sticks out more than the wins? I mean, 64 would have been probably a great celebration amongst you guys, and maybe you sat up here, maybe, I don't know if the clubhouse was here at that time, but maybe the night was late, but the memories off the course?
Yeah, we certainly, Eddie wasn't a drinker. Keith maybe had one drink. Ernie Greenlee, I think, could have a pailful and still be okay. Ernie was a plumber, so the plumbers drink a lot. Okay. Yeah. But we didn't celebrate in any unusual fashion. It was unique in the sense that Saskatchewan, I don't think it ever won the Willington Cup.
No, that's the only one in history.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
Yes. And it was one of those things that happened. Who knows? I was at the right place at the right time. Yeah. Absolutely.
You just went on and you just continued to play well through your seniors and mid-amateur and upwards of 14, 15 provincial championships, every Hall of Fame in Saskatchewan. Does anything stand out more than the others? No.
No. It's just nice to be alive. Yep. Except that my game, Clark, is going south, as I indicated to you, and so it's, you remember how you played, and then you hit a shot and say, where the hell did that come from? It's one of those things. And so I've got to go and find it and hit it again. That's the nature of golf.
But as we talk about golf and celebrate the sport as it is, it's a game for life. And you mentioned, you still get out here three times a week, and you would like to play more.
Absolutely.
And
It's the problem this year, Clark, is it's hard to get a tee time.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, golf has taken off in a sense that more people are working out of home and probably not working quite as hard as they might have had they been in an office, and therefore have got time to be out here. And the tee sheet at this golf course has never been this full that I can remember. And I'm very fortunate to be playing with probably between 16 and 24 guys who sign up on a day-over-day basis and play, and we get together and have a game on started on the first tee, and we meet up here afterwards and we got a $6 or $7 game going that we trade loonies and have good fun with. This year that happened on the occasion, but not very often, and that's too bad because it took away from the golf season.
How did the boys get into hockey and not golf? Your boys.
Good question.
Golf seemed so much safer, especially when they were playing.
I played junior hockey, and then I played with the senior Quakers and the Huskies, kind of along the way. So I've got a bit of hockey past, and I loved the game. I started Scott downstairs in our basement. We would go down after supper. He would be 2 years old, or maybe 2.5, and we would have a shootout. And we would, when he scored 10 goals, it was time to go upstairs and go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of where it all started. And Jeffrey, we played hockey in the hallway, watched my wife's dismay. There was a little hallway between the bedrooms and the kitchen, and we would have a little shootout going in there sometimes. We chipping away at the paint and the moldings and whatever. Boys loved to play, and that was a big part of the year. It's hockey season starts at this first snowfall, which typically is November 1, and it's part of the world until the end of March. And I got involved in the Eastview Hockey Association and coached along the way, and coached Scott for a while and coached Jeffrey for a while. So I think they developed a desire to play, and they end up being pretty skilled players. Jeffrey went down on a hockey scholarship to Duluth, and Scott got drafted by the Islanders and played 4 years of minor pro hockey, but his back didn't stand up. Jeffrey, on the other hand, was a skinny little thing, tall and skinny, and he just wasn't built to play hockey. And yet they both excelled to get to those levels, and they have great memories of playing hockey, but they also, in the summertime, learned to play golf.
Yeah.
And both of them are good, what I think to be good golfers. Scott's got a bad back from coming back from hockey, and so, but he plays at probably a 2 or a 3, and Jeff might be a 6 or 5 or 6 handicap.
Yeah, very good out there.
So those are pretty good players in my mind.
Yeah.
They certainly beat me by a long way. So.
And then, of course, Connor somehow got into the golf and not hockey, as he's down in Arizona playing now.
He is. Connor, I think I started Connor skating at age 3 or 4, and Connor was a kid that he'd go on the ice and he'd want to help some of the little kids skate rather than skating himself. It was that type of a personality, and he just didn't develop into a competitive hockey player. He did play some, but he hits the ball a mile, and he's got some good golf skills. He is, I just can't think of what division it would be. It's not Division 1 golf, but it would be probably.
I think it might be NAIA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so he's Connor can do a lot of good things on the golf course, and like anybody else, he can wander.
Yeah.
And when you start to wander a little bit, it hurts your golf swing and hurts your golf score. So, but he's down there going to school, and I think he ultimately would like to become a pilot, and I think he's going to use this degree, which he's going to get, would be towards becoming an airline pilot, and that's his desire. He's been flying for a lot of years on his own.
Wow.
Scott got married, when Scott played hockey in Salt Lake City, he met a girl, and they ultimately married, and she was, I'm going to say Scott was 24, she was 19. She was a Mormon girl. And came back here, Connor was born here, but she just didn't like it in Canada, didn't like
The cold.
we were, or whatever, and so wanted to go back to Salt Lake City, and did so, and went down and developed her own little career in photography. But so Connor's been raised by Scott and I suppose my daughter Sandy was certainly Scott's helper along the way, and it was a community thing, and we think we've done a great job because he's a nice young man.
He has a great, and I just want to tell you a quick story here before we wrap this up. At the amateur this year at the Legends in Warman, the starter tent, we usually have the championship trophies there on the final day for the players, look at them and whatnot. And I can't remember who Connor was playing with in his group that day, but he was looking at it and he was kind of counting how many times your name was on it, and the player who was with him said, "Oh, what are you looking at?" He said, "Well, I'm looking to see how many times my grandpa's name is on here." He is a great man and a great golfer. Is that nice?
Oh, very nice. Takes your breath away at times.
Yeah. Just everybody's just proud, and just the gentleman that you are more than a golfer.
Well, not everybody would believe that, but oh my, there was some very, very tempestuous days along the way that my temper got the better of me, but I guess that's just part of the nature. I didn't grow up. I had a hard desire that I wanted to do well, and when I hit shots offline or missed putts or did whatever, it ate away at me. But
Thankfully, you didn't miss too many.
here we are.
Here we are.
Yes.
Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Nice to have you here.